Good evening. Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting of August 24th. And we'll call the meetings to order at 6:01 p.m. And the first order of business is the approval of the August 10th minutes. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments, anything of the above? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Any abstentions? Mr. Duval abstain. Otherwise, it is unanimous. And the next order of business is public comments. Is there anybody here from the public for public comments? Seeing no one, we will move on to Mr. Carpenter's recognitions.
Just one quick one. I just want to thank both of our chambers of commerce for helping put together some little welcoming baskets for our new staff. Both chambers each year go and provide a number of little knickknacks for our new staff, and it's a great way to welcome them to the district and to, for many of them, a new community that they've moved to. So thank you, both Harwich and Chatham Chambers of Commerce.
Thank you. And if it's all right with the committee, we would like to take the agenda out of order a little bit and see if we can move up the superintendent's report to before our reports and discussions. Do I have any objections to that? Okay. So Mr. Carpenter, the superintendent's report, please.
So I just want to start by saying that yesterday the bus routes, I believe it was yesterday, the bus routes got posted, and those that have downloaded the Monomoy app can actually access the bus routes via the Monomoy app. So I wanted to just share with the committee. I know, we had gone back and forth on whether we could get all of the buses started after 7 o'clock. I want to give Cape Destinations a lot of kudos. They were able to go and get all of the buses with the exception of one to be able to pick up students after 7 o'clock. There's one bus that has a handful of students that would need to get on it just in minutes before. I think it's in the 6:56 to 7 o'clock range on the periphery of Harwich to go and get all of the students to Harwich Elementary School in time for it to start and for that bus to then get repositioned to do its run for the middle and high school. But I know that getting the routes set each year and getting them tested takes a lot of time. I think I even saw Jay out there at a couple buses testing some routes as I was driving around town the last couple of days. So so I just wanted to I asked Cape Destinations if they could come if you had any questions, and just kind of leave it there for the moment.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments for busing, bus schedules? Ms. Hope?
I think Cape Destination's done a great job for us, but we have had a lot of comments from, or at least I have, from people wanting not only the bus routes, but before and after school activities and things like that to come out earlier. So my interest would be if we could maybe to have it by the 1st or the 6th or something of August, so we wouldn't have so many nervous parents trying to get babysitting and all that kind of thing. But this sounds like it's a great move.
Thank you for having us here. I'm Peggy Garahan. I'm here with my husband Jay, and Gretchen Williams is our general manager. She's here with us. Every year when we approach bus routing, there's a real system we have to follow, and the main point to get settled is that we have our database correct, and that we're only putting those routes out once correctly. As the more changes that happen, that means people that have made their plans, now those times are changed. So the real goal is to make sure we have everything accurately before we start the routing. We received probably the database the end of July, I think it was. And at that point, then now we have to go through and compare everything and make sure that what we have is what the school has, and that all those forms the parents filled out of whether they're going to be using the bus, where those students are. So it takes quite a bit of time to get through that. I think we probably finished that by the first week of August, the 6th or 7th, and we started routing at that point. And we had them done fairly early, that we had things ready, and then the changes started coming in. And, we came in one Monday morning, there were 20 new changes just from the high school alone. And so if there's a way to manage those changes, we would absolutely be able to get the bus routes out earlier. It's a hard balance to do, because you don't want the routes out until you know you have all of the accurate information, so you're not making changes, but you want them out early enough for parents to be able to plan. So we'll follow whatever direction you all decide of what the cutoff dates are and when things need to be, but it's knowing that those changes can't really happen after the dates are put in place.
Do you,
Ms. Dow?
do you have changes all year long?
We do. There's adjustments that happen. By that point, you're able to already see who the ridership is. At this point, we don't know who's actually going to ride. We have, for the elementary schools, they do a great job of getting those forms back to us. As the kids get older, it's not as likely that those forms are getting filled out. So we have to route for everyone that might not be riding the buses. And so there's a lot more on the high school routes and the middle school routes that might actually be riding. So when things start changing over the year and we see who's really riding, then you can start making adjustments to the routes. The challenge this year too, I've seen a lot of information on the preschool clubs you're going to do for especially the middle school. We don't know how that's going to affect ridership, and it could really change the timing we've put out there for the routes if there's a good amount of students going to these clubs and now won't need the rides. So we like to have the first couple weeks get under the belt to see where the ridership is, see how, that first week of school for the elementary especially is always, the timing is off because everybody's doing their pictures and the kindergarten are starting and all of that. So we like to get the first 2 weeks done, see where the ridership is, see where we start doing bus counts during the second week, and really monitoring the timing and see what we can change for people.
So I don't know if I've heard this right, but the information that was new to me is mostly about that the middle and high school kids aren't getting their information back in time.
They're less likely to fill out those forms. So, where Harwich Elementary, we almost get 100% of the forms filled out. We don't get those kind of numbers back from the middle and high school.
And they turn their forms in, does it say yes or no on it?
The forms have whether you will be using the bus service or you won't be.
Okay.
There's a spot on there for school choice, or I think this year we made it a second form, a separate form. So school choice is the next thing that gets added in, also in with routing. So.
Okay. This information is really helpful because, some of the parents that have talked said things like, we might not be able to go to Monomoy because of this isn't getting to us. Mm-hmm. And those are like huge problems when people get to feel like that.
Absolutely.
And so you want to do everything you can, and if we can on our end, maybe help get the middle and high school stuff. It goes through the school to you.
Yes.
Faster or something, that might
Yeah,
help.
it helps with all the routing because then we know who's actually riding. Mm-hmm. And, for other things that you could help getting the word out this year, the elementary school, these parents need to have their children out of the stops. There's not waiting in the house to put your coat on and get your backpack on for the bus to get there. You have to be ready to go at your time. It was very challenging to get these routes to 40 minutes this year. We had, especially the East Harwich routes were in the low 50s, 50 to 55 minutes last year. So we had to take 10 to 12 minutes off routes. And that's a big deal. It was a lot to accomplish. For this to run successfully, parents need to do their part of being ready for that bus and ready for the students to board.
I wonder if a letter couldn't go out, maybe from the bus company, maybe from us or something, saying something to explain to parents more about this, because it seems like some of it's communication, some of it, I'm not sure where we'll go from, but
And it's also something, we have our drivers meeting next week that we're going to work with our drivers on. They're very accommodating to the family. We're very fortunate with the group of drivers we have, and they've always been very helpful, and we'll circle back around if a parent isn't home. That can't happen anymore. It was part of the email that went out yesterday to families about being ready for the stops, but also in the afternoon for the elementary students, if parents aren't home, we're not going to be able to circle around for them to be back 10 minutes later. Those students are going to be brought to the closest elementary school from the end of the route. So that's a big change this year.
Mr. Duvall?
I'd just like to say thank you. Logistically, I don't think most people realize what goes into something like this. And us throwing the monkey wrench into doing the flip-flop certainly doesn't help. So thank you for all the effort that went into it, and I fully understand why the later we publish the schedules, the less changes happen during the first 2 weeks. So we try to make it so the parents can be prepared, but we also don't want the parents to be mad at us later because things are changing. And so thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you. Our team has worked really hard on making this as accurate and safe as it possibly can be. We have had calls already, not as many as we anticipated. We knew this change was really going to be a surprise for people. They've been, so far, the ones that you expect. They change from 4th to 5th grade, and now it may not be as close to your house, a little further distance, same from 7th to 8th grade. So those parents are, a little bit concerned. Elementary, we have had to make a few more neighborhood stops than more before, just to keep that time down. And there has been a lot of changes in routes. We've really had to shift things. That route that's out in East Harwich, we had to take a piece of that off, and so that went to the next route, which meant the route next to that had to take a little bit more. So it was a lot of shifting around.
thank you.
Ms. Long?
You already addressed one question, which I was going to ask about consolidating stops. That was kind of something I'd asked last year, and it seems like you guys have tried to work to consolidate as little as you have to, but at some point, maybe that's something we have to address as a group. And the second, I just wanted to know, I've had wonderful personal experiences with bus drivers, but sometimes they change, and what the process is when a bus driver's change to a new route, or you get a new driver.
Well, we have a couple new drivers that will be part of your contract this year. They're already out with trainers doing the routes now. During the beginning of the school, they'll either have, I think all of them either have a trainer or a monitor is going to be with them for the first couple of weeks until they get settled into the routine of it.
But I mean, mid-year, if
during-
we're all settled into a route, then we have a new driver who's not settled into their new route. How does that, I mean, do they get an opportunity to train with the old driver for a while, or?
Depends on the circumstance of why that transition's happening, but they'll have a trainer with them. We have 4 staff members that are bus trainers, so they work closely with them on the new route.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? I just had a question, I don't know if it might be from Mr. Carpenter more, but what is the procedure for distances for the kids to walk to the bus stops? I know the elementary schools are closer to their houses, but how far?
I think a lot of that depends on the location of the house, the neighborhood, the availability of sidewalks, how busy the street is. So, and I think that's something that Cape Destinations has taken into account as they're putting this together. So generally, I think the general rule of thumb is that that we send at the elementary level, we send buses into neighborhoods to pick up kids, and as the kids get older in middle school and high school, the bus stop becomes a community bus stop on the main street at the end of the neighborhood. And I think that's for some families that may be reaching out to, is, my child, my child's in high school, but suddenly, as an eighth grader, they're walking further to that, that stop. And I think I had two parents reach out to me today, both with eighth graders that were, I think, shocked that it used to be in front of our house, but now it's further away. And I understand that, but that's part of trying to to have that consolidation of stops so that we can go and get our high school, middle school buses that have covered twice as much ground as the elementary buses, do those runs and get to the buildings.
And I think that goes back a bit too to those forms, and if we knew who was actually riding, it might give us a little more flexibility to get into some of those neighborhoods. 6 buses to do all of Chatham and Harwich is very limited of what you can accomplish with the high school. So, and those were the same calls we were getting today of 8th grade parents.
And then that would lead into my other question is, I know it was in the letter that went out to families, but can you review for our lovely viewing audience, what, if you have a question or concern, or if your child's not, you have no idea where to put your kid on a stop, what do you do?
So you can reach out to Cape Destinations, and I included the phone number in the email that I sent out. You can go in and contact Gretchen at Cape Destinations. I think my experience over the last 4 years is, we work with them, and we'll do everything we can to address those things that really seem to be safety issues, where we might not have got that there's not a sidewalk where they're on a busy road type of thing. So it's address the safety things first and do them early, and then try to accommodate as many of the other wants as we can. And that's where, once we have a couple, weeks to feel how smoothly those buses are going, that's going to tell us how many of those wants, including how many spaces are available on the buses for school choice students to go and get picked up by a bus on, that might be, going along the, Harwich, Dennis line to have a stop somewhere for them.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for coming. It's very helpful.
Thank you very much for coming.
And just to emphasize something that Peggy said, and to it was in the letter, and to just share with the committee so that you understand this. Two things that I tried to emphasize is the need to have the morning pickup flow, and I can admit, as a parent, I have been one of those people who I have pictures of my kids every year, first day, and and pausing to have that picture as your child's going up the stairs of the bus means that bus is going to show up at the elementary school 20 minutes late, which means that bus is going to be 20 minutes late for its high school run, which gums up the works for everybody. And this is one of the things that, as a district, we have to adjust to. That the elementary buses have something that they have to do immediately after that run. It used to be the elementary bus would show up 20 minutes late, and it just is inconveniencing Chatham Elementary or Harwich Elementary. Now it creates a situation where it trickles down to the middle school and high school. On that same end, because the elementary buses in the afternoon have somewhere to go, if there's not somebody there to pick or to meet the child, and that's the routine. And I was deliberately vague in how I phrased the email, because I think an appreciation I have had about Cape Destinations is I think our drivers get to know the families well, and they understand the routine of the family. So for kindergartners, we expect that there's going to be a parent there, but the family routine in a case might have been the fourth grader's mom was always there, but for whatever reason one day isn't. The bus driver will not be dropping the kid off, but that bus has somewhere it has to go. That bus has to be at a middle school or high school doing a run, for another 40 kids, and we can't go and have the bus loop the neighborhood like it did in the past. So what was in the letter is an explanation that the bus will take the elementary age child to either Harwich Elementary School or Chatham Elementary School, whichever is closest to its run to where it needs to go next. We'll contact the family and say, your son or daughter's here with us. But that's, again, an adjustment that we have to have. It used to be that the bus would first kind of loop the neighborhood after it's run, and if there still wasn't somebody there, the bus would come home or come to the elementary school, and kids would get dropped off. But again, it's an adjustment that we have to go through as we change start times.
All right, very good. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks for taking your time. Very helpful. Mr. Carpenter, do you want to continue on into the report?
Sure. Just other quick things. In terms of parents, and I know that each of the schools will be communicating this out to their families, but Harwich Elementary School, the doors will be open, and parents could do drop off as early as 7:15. The children there'll be staff members there that will guide the children down to the cafeteria. They can get breakfast in the cafeteria before school. At Chatham Elementary School, the Monomoy Community Services runs a program that students could be part of as early as 7 o'clock. The doors at Chatham Elementary School will open for drop-off at 7:35, and students can go in to the cafeteria for breakfast. At the middle school and high school, the doors will be open at 7:30, and I think in both buildings there are going to be options that students can get breakfast in the cafeteria before school, or in the case of the high school and middle school, potentially take advantage of both libraries for some quiet study as well. And as Peggy had mentioned, there's a number of morning clubs that I know will start to evolve at the high school, and I know that Principal Wilson has already put in place a lot of different morning programming for families to take advantage of before school as well. So again, I think there's a lot of new things that will be happening, and I imagine that there's going to be a lot of things that will evolve as we move forward. I shared with you this information about the Monomoy app. I think it was neat to go and be able to pull up the bus information there and we'll have more information going out to families. All of the administrators and many of the building clerical staff today had a training on this Blackboard suite, this communication suite, including the app, but also on how to use our new email blast system. So ideally, this whole suite will provide us a better means of communicating with families. So more will come out on how that suite operates, and I think the intent is after our back-to-school curriculum nights over the course of September, to have sort of a parent university on how to take advantage of the communication tools the district has to support your children. In terms of a couple quick announcements, I want to just kind of let the committee know first about the Children's Cove. These are things that may be showing up in the media over the next couple of weeks, and they're good things. First, the Children's Cove. Monomoy's partnered with the Children's Cove as part of the Cape and Islands Child Advocacy Center Teen Task Force. And the mission of the Cove is to provide coordinated, comprehensive, multidisciplinary services to child victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, witnesses of domestic violence, and child exploitation or trafficking. To this end, the purpose of the Child Advocacy Center Teen Task Force is to raise awareness for programs and services of Children's Cove and to engage teens by empowering them to advocate for peers seeking help and to educate peers on child abuse issues. 12 to 20 sophomores will have an opportunity to apply to be part of the Teen Task Force. They'll meet once a month from December to May, and the meetings will be facilitated by the Children's Cove professionals and partner agencies from Cape Cod Community College. The meetings will consist of educational topics presented and discussed, and planning for community and school awareness projects to be presented in April of 2018. And then our guidance departments will be working closely with Children's Cove throughout the year. So, so there's sort of supports and and opportunities for students to get involved in that coming forward. The other thing that I'd like to commend Melissa again on getting us connected with is a program called Excel, which stands for Excellence Through Social Emotional Learning Network. The Excellence Through Social Emotional Learning Network has selected 9 districts across Massachusetts for a year-long partnership to focus on the design and implementation of policies and practices to promote social emotional learning in order to better prepare all students for college and career. Monomoy was one of 9 districts out of 36 that applied to be part of the project. So we were selected as one of 9 of the 36 that applied, and with the support of the Excel Network and its partners, the Renee Center for Education Research and Policy, Teachers 21, and Transforming Education, districts will work together to support educators with the necessary training and tools to help students develop their social emotional skills. The structure of the network will provide a community of support where educational leaders can learn from one another, work towards a common goal, and support each other's systemic and practice shifts. So we'll have a small team that will be part of this, and our team will include Dr. Blanchard, Robin Titus, who's our psychologist, school psychologist at the high school, Kristen Eden, who's an adjustment counselor at Monomoy Regional Middle School, Jill Malinowski, who's a guidance counselor at Chatham Elementary School, Mary Oldeck, our assistant principal at Harwich Elementary School, and Melissa McGuire. And I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Carpenter on his report? All right, so we're going to hop back into reports and discussions, and apologize to Ms. Walter for delaying her presentation. We have the Monomoy Regional Middle School foreign language cultural trip to Puerto Rico in April 2019. And the screen is I'll take it first then, Mr. Carpenter.
Here. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Walter. I'm here to propose a trip in 2019 for the current 6th graders when they are in 7th grade to go to Puerto Rico. We already have in motion a Washington, D.C. trip for this year's 7th graders, and so the Puerto Rico trip is like trying to enhance on the Spanish curriculum. So we're looking at April 3rd to 7th in 2019. That's 5 days because you do have to take a plane to get down there. One of the key aspects is El Morro and Old San Juan in the capital of Puerto Rico. The island is a republic of the United States, so luckily we will not need a passport to travel there. It goes along with the style and curriculum in Spanish of personal and cultural identity. It's a large unit. We start with personal and regular interpersonal communication and keep expanding the topic outward and adding more vocabulary and communication skills as we go. And in 6th grade, we do an entire unit on personal and cultural identity, which explores in specific, particular jumping off point of the Caribbean islands. So we focus on Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic. We also have a lot of native speakers from that area too, so they have their classmates to bounce off of. But it would be an excellent opportunity to be able to go see one of the islands and the whole colonization part of it that crosses the curriculum with social studies. You have the conquistadors and the colonization. And then there's also the ecosystems and the science aspect of the ecosystems and biomes and such because of the tropical rainforests. Sarah Kane would be my assistant in this. She leads the Washington, D.C. trip, so we bounce back and forth and help one another. Talked about that besides the other academic aspects of the social studies and science, we have the immersion in the Spanish language. Other trips are hosted to New York for Spanish. French goes to Quebec, but you're still speaking English there. Puerto Rico gives us the unique opportunity of putting them into the Spanish language and practicing what we're doing in class. And to hear it, it's just the input is vital to enhancing your language skills. So being able to have it be surrounded by it, I mean, it's all out there, but putting them in the situation is like nothing else. Explorica is the company that's based out of Boston. They have numerous tours all over the world and years and years of experience. They're part of the Travelers Certification Network. There's a bunch of different, like Better Business Bureau, and also certified, not just by Better Business Bureau, but also the specific travel section of that company. Troshut, I still can't pronounce his last name, is our programmer that I've been talking to, and that we're arranging everything up to this point. And he would be with us the entire process. So that provides a lot of consistency in the planning. Some of the details, it is with the 10-to-1 ratio, student-teacher ratio, that is our plan. We'd have teacher chaperones only. The students are already familiar with us. It would be probably UA teacher, well, starting with Ms. King and myself. And then if we had enough people, if we get that up to 30, we'd probably get another UA teacher, because all the students in school know us. By 7th grade, they know all the teachers, but it just, they're more familiar with us after 3 years. The cost right now is $1,583 per student to fly out of Boston, round trip to San Juan. Excuse me. Got to get back in the groove for the new year. If we sign them up now in September, right away, that's $85.14 per month after an initial $50 payment to secure your spot on the trip. That also includes, they're putting through right now a deal of that includes a $75 discount if you sign up by the end of September. So of course, they get a little bit of some money knocked off. So that's that $75 voucher. On us are lunches, but they said it costs about $10 a day for a lunch. So that's $40 for the whole trip. Souvenirs and any checked luggage. But for the 5 days in a warm climate, you really just need the shorts, t-shirt, bathing suit, and then they suggest like the hoodie that you probably will wear on the plane out of Boston. So, I mean, you don't need too many clothes. There's a little room for the souvenirs, and you really could just go with a carry-on. And we have a consolidated tour, so there would be a possibility of getting another school put with us to keep the price down. We'd be with them on the tours, but we have exclusive rooming, so we'd only be rooming with our students, our students would be rooming together, and not with anybody from the other school. It would just be for the tour guide aspects of the day, the bus that takes us from site to site, that would be with possibly another school. The more students we get, the bus still takes 55 people, so if we fill the bus, then they wouldn't come with us. Some of the highlights, super exciting, are El Morro, which is that giant fortress that protected them from maybe the French or the Dutch that were coming in and trying to also settle the area, and all the history behind that. A tour of El Yunque, which is the only tropical rainforest in North America. We decided on putting the zipline canopy tour as an option in case people have fears of heights. I, for one, would love to go on it, but I know there are some people that might be uncomfortable with that. So if they wanted to add in, these families themselves could decide that and add it in for $95, we'd make $15 to $20, and if we were joined with another school, that would include them. 15 to 20 participants for it to go, which I think would probably be pretty easy to do because they're pretty fearless about it. They have tons of super certified instructors for it, an extra backup line, helmets, instruction stuff, and instruction time and everything to get them all going. And so that would be an extra $95 at the family's discretion. That would be their total choice. While everyone else is doing it, there is another tour through like a butterfly and nature garden in the area as well. So there's everybody else would just be sitting there, but be getting another walk around the natural wildlife and gardens and park. The bioluminescent Bay Kayak Tour, there are only 7 of these in the world, and that's where the bioluminescent, I'm lacking the word for the little creatures. They're not quite, they're not huge organisms, but they have the luminescence in the water. So you go out there and the water is glowing, and you take a kayak tour through it, as well as a guided reef snorkeling tour to take in all the natural wonders and of the ecosystem in the area. The travel, we have that, a personal tour guide native to the island, fluent in Spanish. We try to speak as much Spanish with the students as possible for the entire trip, but also taking into account their level. That will be 4 students to a hotel room. We have overnight security that is certified and no passport needed. School ID, they said wouldn't be a bad idea to bring anyway. I'm sorry about my voice. So again, Explorer is based out of Boston. They have illness and accident coverage for everybody. It's all that's included. The overnight security at the hotel. There's 24-hour emergency service, so you can get in contact with them right away, make sure everything's safe. And if there's anything needed, and optional travel insurance and a trip protection in case you need to cancel is also available at the choice of the families. I have a link here if anybody would want me to share the presentation with you. They've sent out another packet of further details about all the insurance and information about accident coverage, so that if you'd like to read anything further. Yeah. Questions?
Any questions? Mr. Russell?
Great explanation, thank you. Like most public school trips, I have a couple of questions here. What would be the potential number of Spanish students, grade 7, would you be taking on the trip?
We're aiming for 20 or more, and I see the whole school, so that for at least 90 days of the year, so just about. So they switch half 1 year, half the other, so they all have Spanish at some point in the school year.
And now just my next question. Of the entire school population, grade 7, Spanish kids, that amounts to how many kids? 50, 60?
Again, it's like in a grade, there's like 160, so probably about 120, 30 possible.
Yeah, okay. And last question. The grade 7 Washington, D.C. trip, is that still on?
Yes, that's the trip for 2018. We're looking to do this in 2019 for the current 6th graders when they're 7th graders.
Okay. Well, my only, and there is no way around it, I just have a kind of a general concern. I think these are enriching trips. My however is that the majority of the youngsters who have to struggle to come up with $1,500, and how many of the Spanish exploration class kids, they don't go. So for 30 or 35, 25 youngsters that do go, wonderful experience. Kind of semi-Puerto Rican vacation. And I know it sounds discouraging, but I have that balance in my head that I'd love to think that everybody goes, or no one is denied not going because they can't come up with that amount of money. And I don't have an answer for that, other than just fundraisers that we make certain that kids who say, I really do want to go, and they fall short. I would, and I know there's no advantage, when a school begins to create enrichments like this, that's what you run into. How many youngsters who we probably will never know that just can't step forward and go, although they love it. The Washington trip would be the same bunch of youngsters the next year, maybe? No.
No,
So-
it would be in place of the Washington trip, like the next year. So this year's group of 7th graders entering right now,
This would be their experience.
no, they're going to Washington DC. They've already signed up.
See, not only could I not come up with the money, I don't even understand.
The next year, I'm talking next school year, like,
Yeah.
we're not even looking at it yet, except for this, 2018 to 2019. That would be the trip that year.
My mode is, I think of like next week.
I know. I'm trying to get ahead on it so
But
that
I'll
they
get over
can
that.
break it down and have longer
No, that's good.
together money.
You've answered my question, and it was more of a statement. I don't have that's a concern probably we all share at one level or another, and I just commend you for the plans, because it's a lot of commitment. On the other hand, I wish there was a solution.
The other thing that Explore.ca does offer is very much like a GoFundMe. Each student that signs up for it has a page that will be linked to their account, and any money that they earn, any and all money that they earn goes directly to their trip. So people can go and pledge their, kind of like a GoFundMe type page as part of their fundraising. Christmas, birthdays, whatever they did, give somebody the link. If somebody wants to pledge, then they can. But it works. I don't remember the exact breakdown because we have the Washington DC trip planned. We started earlier this year in planning for that one. So we handed out the invitations to that in June. So the students had 3 or 4 more months than the students this past year that went to pay for that. So the price breakdown is to smaller increments for this year's particular group. But I think the 84 is not much more than the year that just went had to pay each month to lead up to their planning this far in advance would allow us more time to earn that money.
Thank you.
Ms. Long?
I don't know if you could speak to this, but I was curious on why we're shifting from the Washington trip to the trip to Puerto Rico after we've been doing Washington for a while. I'm just curious, what was behind all of a sudden shifting it?
As Monomoy, we're only in our second year of Washington, D.C. As a Spanish teacher, I've wanted to do this trip with my students for years and years. So trying to give them the opportunity to immerse them in the second language at an earlier stage, and I know it's something they've been asking for because since we've talked in Spain about Spain in class, and they said, we should go to Spain. I'm like, Spain's really far. Maybe we can go someplace a little closer first. Something like that, and with the planning and just having an opportunity to, because it takes more planning to get them on a plane and as opposed to a bus to travel to the place, and now I've gotten to the point where I can get that planning in place and take the step to do something even bigger.
Ms. Stout?
I really appreciate all the information you've given us. I do share what Mr. Russell said about the kids not being able to afford things. And since we're a public school, I would love it if there'd be, and this isn't directed at all to you, but if PTA or, I'm not really sure what, it used to be that people that were running the trips did stuff, but it took a lot of time from them. And so, like Mr. Russell, I don't know what the answer is, but it would be great if there could be more looking into that. Mm-hmm. But thank you for doing all this work.
Anybody else? Ms. Richardson?
Okay. I understand this is in the initial stages of planning and so forth, but when do you know, or how far into the planning do you know if the price will change due to another group joining or not? I mean...
This is the price lock. We're locking in the lowest possible price. The other company that I was working with up until this point had a $1,900.69 cost. So this was actually the
So whether or not another group
for the same thing.
joins you, this would be the price?
This is the price. This is the lowest we can get.
Okay, and I don't know, more specifics maybe. Provides illness and accident coverage. Is that on the trip?
Yes.
And the optional travel insurance would be, like, say, 3 months into paying my $84, whatever, I can't go. Is that?
Like some family thing comes up, we have to pull out of the trip to get they would get money back. I think it's like 75%.
And the overnight security in the hotel, I think I need to see that more defined.
That, much like we have the And on the Washington DC trip, there's a person in each of the hallways to make sure students stay in their rooms. There's no troubles during the night, and if there were, they would contact us to.
Is that person one of the Monomoy chaperones, or is it?
It's a hired security firm that's been checked.
Okay.
So that we can sue you.
Which is extremely important.
It is when you're yeah.
Mr. Russell?
And I realize that the planning on the Spanish trip has nothing to do with the Washington trip, but seeing that I have you here in front of that podium, could you just remind me, how many of the 7th grade youngsters at Monomoy Middle went to the Washington trip? These are all
59.
protocol questions.
We had 59 this past year.
About 60 youngsters went on the trip. And again, just for my own information, how many, there are about 110 7th graders?
Yeah, it was about half the grade.
Yeah, okay. And how much was that trip?
It was 760.
Okay, good. Hey, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Wald? Okay, thank you. We try not to vote on the same night, so we'll bring this back at our September meeting. If that's okay? Yep, thank you. Yeah, that's right after school starts, I believe. So thank you very much for your presentation. All right, so moving along, we have the Harwich Elementary 2017-2018 handbook. I'm going to say your name wrong.
Oldak. Mary Oldak, assistant principal of Harwich Elementary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Since we regionalized Chatham Elementary and Harwich Elementary, have been working together to align our parent and family, our student family handbook. And we've been looking at that with Dr. Mellon and Sam and I over the last 2 or 3 years to make sure there's a consistency of message to their families while still preserving the culture of our schools because they are quite different just in terms of physicality and also in culture, and that's important to preserve. So what you have before you in our new handbook, you'll see a dramatic change in the format, just the layout of what it looks like. That's a huge step forward in having a Monomoy Elementary handbook. It does say Harwich Elementary on it because there are still those cultural differences that we'll go over, but it is a uniform message to families at both schools. You do have this summary of revisions as part of your packet. About 50% of these changes and revisions that you see are really just due to the change in our start and stop times, changes in staffing, and also changes in items such as the cafeteria pricing. So I'm going to just move on to the revisions that are more unique to this edition this year. So if we jump down to page 11, the revision in absenteeism, this was an area that we came into alignment with Chatham Elementary and with our policies regarding absences and monitoring absences. In the past at Harwich Elementary, we typically inform parents of absences in excess of 10 once the term ended, and now we're going to be notifying families and getting in touch with families when they hit that mark or get close to it so that we can support families earlier on in the school year. When a student has that many absences, there can be quite a number of reasons, from illness to transportation issues to family issues, and the sooner we know about that, the sooner we can best support the family. Moving down to page 15, we have inserted as part of our ongoing implementation of our fantastic positive behavior interventions and supports, a new table for students who engage in inappropriate behavior, with the difference between minor and major disciplinary actions. This aligns with our disciplinary procedure within the school and with our disciplinary forms with the staff. Another page 16, we really do not hardship on, may not offer that as an option. On page 8, is our something that so nurse care will be helping us really.
Yeah, at the moment, and then education tools, including ASPEN, that are available to parents to support their children. The second strategic initiative is to develop homework expectations for each grade level that address diverse student needs. This is ongoing. There's been conversations that happen at the Educational Council, which is administration and teacher leaders and department heads. We have developed a survey to send out to parents, students, and teachers. It was ready to go at the end of this past year, but we were, at least I'll take credit for, or blame for this. I was worried that it was going to get lost in the frenzy of an end of the year, and thought that it might be more appropriate at the end of first quarter to go and send something out when people aren't so frazzled. So we've got the survey ready to launch, and we'll be sending that out at the end of the first quarter of this upcoming 2017-2018 school year. We also have at the high school a struggling learners committee that has sort of taken the lead on creating homework guidelines. And Mr. Burkhead, when he was presenting to you a few weeks ago, was talking about the homework guidelines that the high school has come up with, and establishing the amount that homework should count towards a course. And they've put that in the high school handbook. And again, I think that approach will be trickling down over the course of the next year to the middle school, and conversations again at the elementary level. So next steps, at the end of quarter one, we can expect a homework survey for staff K-12, for students grades 2 to 12, and for parents grades K-12 regarding homework. We'll review the homework survey data with the educational councils and staff. Again, use that survey to help refine homework guidelines, and in the cases of the high school, to create guidelines. And ideally, this will help us support differentiation within the classroom, which again is one of the strategic initiatives that we'll be talking about at our next school committee meeting, when we move on to the next strategic objective. Again, resources, I don't think we're going to need financial resources on this one. I do think that we are going to just need the time to put out the survey and analyze the survey. There have been conversations that I think have percolated up in a lot of discussions on just the school day. There are communities out there that have looked towards expanding school days, and in many cases to expand a school day so that there isn't homework, that you're providing a situation where students are doing homework within the context of their school day and not beyond. Again, things to mull, but those are things that when we're, at least when I've been meeting with parents and some staff, some people have brought up in the dialogue. Third strategic initiative, to include parent and community feedback in the decision-making process. I'd actually say that if we look back over the last few years, this is a place that we've made a lot of headway, and I'd say that we've met the intent of this. We've been doing end-of-year surveys of students and staff and parents for the last 3 years. The high school conducted a JAWSOM Power Hour survey of staff, students, and parents. It's involved students, parents, and community members and staff in the development of their core values and beliefs and their 21st century learning expectations. The high school is also in the process of going through the NEASC accreditation, which involves a survey, an Endicott survey as part of that. We will continue to do our biennial youth risk behavior survey and share that out at community forums. Chatham Elementary School has surveyed parents on after-school needs, a time, talent, and treasure survey to find mentors and community connections. They have done a community event timing survey and asked parents about what topics they'd like to see at parent universities. At Harwich Elementary School, they've invited representative community staff parent groups to forums for feedback on the school improvement plan, and that was part of the broadening of that school council group that Sam and Mary talked about when they gave their presentation to you. Both of the elementary schools also were surveying staff or surveying parents into this past year on what sort of before and after school supports parents would need as we go into this time change. The middle school has been surveying parents on before school support that families would need given the time changes. They've also done a survey on what sort of home internet capabilities families have as they're looking towards this one-to-one initiative that will be starting this year at the middle school. Our own student service department has surveyed special education parents on supports and services in the district and held special education needs surveys for all of the district's special education staff. We have school councils in place to provide the administration and district feedback. Chatham Elementary has a council of 4 staff, 4 parents, and 2 4th grade students. Harwich Elementary has had a council of 2 parents, 2 teachers, which they've expanded for this upcoming year to be a representative group that involves students or staff and parents at each grade level, with 15 members on that council. The middle school has a council of 3 parents and 3 staff. The high school has a council of 3 parents, 3 staff, and 1 community member. And then on my end, I've gone and held coffees each year and tried to get into each building to meet with parents at different times to try to get feedback from them. I think that there's still a need to increase the consistency of involvement in our school councils in all of our schools. The administration has also been discussing whether, as a district, we should actually be involved in NEASC from a district level, not just the high school level, but to look at this NEASC process of self-reflection as a district. And again, that would involve looking at that Endicott survey, not just at the high school to say, how's the high school doing, but to look at that same sort of surveying approach as we look towards accreditation from a district perspective. In terms of the 4th strategic initiative, to continue to develop strong school councils, parent-teacher organizations, and volunteers in public schools at each of our schools. This is an ongoing effort. The school councils, particularly 3 out of the 4 buildings, I think have been quite active. The school council at CES, I have to give Robin and her crew a lot of credit. I think they've really been exemplar on what school councils could look like. I think that what we've seen over the course of this strategic plan is I think we've seen school improvement plans that were I think in many ways disconnected from a strategic objective for the district to become very connected. And I think that what you've seen in each one of the presentations of our principals over the last several weeks are are school improvement plans that are linked tightly to a district improvement plan, and I think that's helping us all move forward together lockstep. One of the other important things that has been going on this year is the launching of a Boosters Club, an all-sports Boosters Club to support sports athletics in the district, not just at the high school, but to look at how we can support athletics at the middle school, and a lot of conversations have been going on between our athletic director, Karen Gilmet, and the two towns as well. And I know that some people have wondered, okay, the superintendent seemed to get really involved in the Boosters Club, and there's a reason for that. There's a significant number of our kids that we're losing. It has nothing to do with academics. There's a lot of pull that still happens out of this district for athletic reasons, and for me, I have a lot of frustration, knowing that that we've got some starters that ideally I wished were here, with our own kids, kids playing that are in neighboring school districts, and I think that having a strong boosters program that can support athletics in both of our communities will behoove us over the long haul on that end. Just the other piece of this that deals with really the volunteers in public schools. I gave the school committee a presentation on a vision that we could look at for a volunteers in public schools program based on what Falmouth, I think, has been doing an exemplar job over the last many years. Even without a formal VIPS program in place, volunteerism is present and alive within our schools. At Chatham Elementary Schools, there have been 15 mentors this past year who have been identified as sharks for pups in a program that's going on there. Chatham Elementary School has 2 volunteers that run the arts, or the Adventures in Arts program, and the Senior Volunteer Corps sends 14 volunteers who do extended reading opportunities and math support at Harwich Elementary School. So we see volunteerism happening in our buildings, and I think this is a spot that there's so many people in both the communities of Harwich and Chatham who have a lot to give and provide our students, and I think this is a spot I'll again, come budget season, be pitching to the school committee that I think it's an important area to look at the bang for the buck that we could get out of having a coordinator to help bring about more volunteerism in the schools. We also, in terms of next steps, we do have a special education parent advisory council, and it's one of those things that I think needs strengthening. Ideally, that council should be sort of standing on its own, and I think, maybe somewhat with the transition, I think Melissa at the moment is helping support that in much the same way that I'm helping support the boosters and getting that program launched. And ideally over the course of this next year, we'll see those 2 organizations really starting to flourish more. Let's see. The last strategic initiative is to foster more community partnerships that support our educational mission and to strengthen civic-minded decision-making and attention to global responsibilities. I'll try not to be redundant, because I think this strategic initiative really dovetails in very nicely with the last strategic initiative that we spoke about at our last meeting, which dealt with integrating more of the STEAM, the STEM type things into our curriculum to really achieve leveraging the unique history and environment of our communities. So things that go on with regard to fostering these community partnerships. A database on community service learning partners has been created by the Director of Curriculum. The high school has a community internship program that's now tripled over the last couple of years. We now have 40 students participating in this program. There are internships at 20 different area businesses and organizations who have become actively involved in our educational program. For those on the school committee, I'd encourage you to get a chance to come over to the Credit for Life fair that will be happening this fall. The Credit for Life and Cape Cod job fairs at the high school have involved numerous businesses. The high school also holds an annual wellness fair that involves many health-related organizations to come in and share with students and staff what they have available. And we also have seen now our international exchange is starting to happen at the high school, and we're finding a number of different organizations and businesses involved in supporting that. And finally, we continue to have a Project Citizen at our 8th grade that that is involved in solving community problems. And lastly, we have 28 middle school teachers that are trained as service learning teachers, and we're going to see, I think, more and more of that service learning start to flourish at the middle school, and again, spreading from there, both to our elementary schools and up here to the high school. Again, this is one of those areas that I think having a VIPS coordinator is something that we'll see more connections happen between our schools and the community with somebody who is really focused on that type of coordination.
Any questions for Mr. Carpenter on objective number 2? All right, hold on. Any questions? Thank you. So we will look to do objective number 3 at our next meeting. And next up on our agenda is a STEM update, but I think that while the STEM is something that we all want to be updated on, this particular update was prompted by Ms. Ryder looking for an update on something, so I think we're going to postpone that until another meeting when she'll be present, since she's absent this evening.
Well, I could give you some quick homework. How about this?
I don't like homework.
So things that, and little pieces of education that I've had this summer. I always thought Raspberry Pi was something one eats until this summer. So I would encourage you to do a Wikipedia search of Raspberry Pi, and that's a P-I pie. And what a Raspberry Pi is a little computer on a chip. And there's more and more things that are happening with Raspberry Pis that I never even realized. And the other thing to look up is something called Hackerspace. And you could, again, do a Wikipedia search on Hackerspace. I think the question that Ms. Ryder had asked is just what's happening when it comes to maker spaces and Hackerspace, makerspace. They're synonyms. And I would just share with you, and I'm sure that each of us around the table experienced something like this. When I was in high school, we had to make bookends and birdhouses, and there were these templates that we cut out our bookends and birdhouses from and nailed them together, glued them together, and we were going off templates. And I'll admit, in my school district, I had to take a sewing class. And again, I had a template that I had to go, a pattern that I had to go cut out. And I think that what we're seeing is we're moving away from that type of shop class. And that it's no longer, here's the pattern, make the pattern. You create, and you end up with all these identical birdhouses or Adirondack chairs or clocks. But here's a device, a little computer on a chip that you could go and use to program in so many different ways, and come up with something that you could do with it. So it's trying to put the critical thinking into the activities that our students are doing in tech classes. And I know that Matt Barnes and Mike Newby at the middle school are really leading the way in our district for this. And I'm just proud to say that we've hired over the summer 2 new tech ed teachers for our high school. Rachel Deck just happens to be Mary's husband, who comes to us with a wealth of experience in the business world in technology, and somebody who has if I recall, a computer engineering degree from Princeton, who takes sort of that experience into our classrooms, along with a gentleman, Larry Souza, who has a long experience with Raspberry Pis and all sorts of other things in other school districts. That's going to bring that to us. But we also have at the elementary school, I forget our new librarian, Catherine Ware. So Catherine Ware will be the new, I guess we can't even call her a librarian, it's the new Learning Commons supervisor. But so this notion, so Chatham Elementary School, I think we'll see sort of that evolution of our elementary schools, where the library is a place that you'll go to create too. And Catherine brings to us, she started talking to me about Raspberry Pis, and I'm just like, what's a Raspberry Pi? So I've had so many people start talking about Raspberry Pis this summer, but she's talking about ways that she's been using that sort of technology to go and engage kids in design. And that's kind of where we're going. And again, I think Matt and Mike are looking forward to talking to you about the 3-year curriculum that they've put in place. And I think the nice thing is every 8th grader that's coming into this high school from Monomoy has gone through this fabulous 3-year hacker makerspace program from Mike and Matt.
Okay. So maybe we can have them come back when school's in session, do an update. Great. Thank you. Is there any subcommittee reports? Seeing none, we move on to our action items, of which we have 3. We have the Monomoy Regional Middle School Handbook that we were presented at the last meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve said handbook? Please. With Raspberry Pi on top.
I would move that we accept the presented Monomoy Regional Middle School Handbook for 2017-18.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. And I would also entertain a motion to approve the Monomoy Regional Middle School Improvement Plan as presented at the last meeting.
I move to approve the Monomoy Regional Middle School School Improvement Plan as presented.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that is unanimous as well. And the third action item is the superintendent evaluation report that was presented at our last meeting.
I would move to accept the summative report of the superintendent's evaluation for 2016.
17 school year?
Yes.
Thank you. And I heard a second out of Ms. Richardson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that is unanimous as well. Thank you very much. And is there anything else? No, nothing else, because we're going to actually adjourn our business meeting and go to a workshop. So I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn from our business meeting.
So move.
Thank you. It's
Second.
like pulling teeth out of you guys to just make a motion. All right, so we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? We're not discussing this one.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And we unanimously will adjourn at 7:25. Thank you very much.